So we don't want to spend all of our time calculating standard deviation through all of those 6 steps. It's way too time consuming, and this is applied, right? We need to use technology to do these things. So Desmos has a fantastic kind of stats mode, and there's information on how to use that in files. It says how to use your calculator to find standard deviation and mean, and I have notes there for how to use a Casio, how to use a Sharp, and how to use Desmos. And I think a couple of you guys said that you have Texas Instruments, so I'm going to try to find some information and put some notes up on how to use a Texas Instrument calculator to find mean and standard deviation, although a quick Google search will get you the same thing. So if you just want to, traditionally we use our calculator. We don't normally use Desmos for the stats unit. Our calculator does a really great job of it once we figure out how our calculator works. If you can't do that on your own, use Desmos. But if you can use your calculator, I encourage you to do that, because you'll always have access to your calculator in Applied. You won't always have access to the internet, okay, if that's where you're getting your Desmos from. So I have a Casio. I don't have anything else at home with me. I only have a Casio, so it's the only one I can show you. But lots of you guys answered the survey and said that you had Casios, so I thought we would just do a quick demo on how to use it. So if you have a Casio, then you are just going to go to mode and pick 2, right? Because stats is number 2. And then at this point, you have to tell it what kind of stats you want to do. Everything is crazy except number 1. So you might do some of this other stuff in if you take other stats courses, like in university and stuff. But for the most part, the stuff we need to do, everything we need to do for this course is going to be just in this one variable, this one var, one variable. Okay, that's it. So we're just going to press 1. And in a Casio, at least a couple of these models of Casio, this brings up a table. And I really like the table because the table lets me see all the data points that I put in. I haven't seen any Sharps that do that. Instead, Sharps kind of have a little number that pops up to tell you how many pieces of data you have, but a Casio puts it in a table. So what you want to do is, once you've got it in stats mode, even says that on your calculator. I don't know how to make this little stat display here go away, so don't worry about it. It's okay. Your calculator can be in stats mode all the time. It doesn't matter. And right, because we sometimes worry about our calculator being in degree mode for trade. If your calculator is in radian mode and you're doing stats, who cares, right? Those things don't really matter. They only matter when we're using certain buttons. So we're in stats mode. My calculator now is permanently in stats mode, and it hasn't affected how it's being used. So don't worry about that if that's how if that's kind of worrying you for your calculator. All right, so I'm going to use this this first table here in this sunflower seed example. Read what the question's asking, and I'm just going to show you how to put the data in. So again, let's start from the beginning because I talk so much. Mode 2 into stats mode, and then we want to choose 1 for one variable, and then we're just going to put our data points in. So 228 is our first, 228 is our first data point, and then to input that in a Casio, we press equals. Okay. In a Sharp, I believe many models, when you want to put a data point in, you put the M+ in. Okay, but in my calculator and lots of Casios, you just press equals to get to where the next row in the table and put another point in. So you just put all your data points in, one of them, and you can stop and you can see what row you're in and if it matches up with your number. So I'm in row 10. I just put my 10th data point in, and I'm in my second column of this table here. So I'm on track. I haven't lost any data points yet, which is good. Hopefully I've entered them all in correctly. That and I can use these arrows here to move around that table and fix up any data points, which I think is another reason why Casios rock. Okay, so there, all 20 data points. We don't have anything in the 21st row. That's okay. Now, it seems a little weird to do this, but what we want to do now is we want to press like the all clear button. So we just like clear that, and don't worry, our data's still there. It's still in the table. But now we need to do stuff with that data. So we're going to press Shift 1, and you can see above the 1 is that stats. Okay, so that brings up another kind of menu for you to choose from. If I pressed 1, tell me that we're at one variable type. It's the type of data we put in, so don't worry about that. Number 2, data would take me back to my table. So if I wanted to go back to my table, I'd do that from here. 3 is the sum, so that would add up all of the data points that I put in the table. I don't want to do that right now. What I want to do is I want to look at variations. I want to look at what's going on in this data. So I want to pick 4. Okay, and now again I get another table of options. Option 1 here tells me how many data points. So if I press 1, it'll say, oh look, n is 20. That's good. That's how many data points I put into my table. Okay, perfect. Go back for, if I want to know x bar. X bar is the mean. So I'm going to press 2, and then I have to press equals again because it still had that 20 left over from before. My mean is 227.15, right? And that matches up with what I have in my notes here. Perfect. So that's my average mass of sunflower seeds in this 227 gram bag, right? So the bag is labeled as 227 grams. The average mass is 227.15 grams. So it's pretty close to what's advertised there. Okay, that's not the hard one though. That's not the one we really care about. That's mode, press 4 again. We have 2 kinds of standard deviation. Sigma is for the population. SX is for a sample. Okay, in grade 11 stats, we're always just going to pick sigma. Okay, we're just going to assume that this is our population, and we're not going to do any of the other crazy stuff that goes along with kind of working on the differences between them. So we want to pick sigma x. Okay, and 3 is our standard deviation. So I have to press equals again, and my standard deviation is 5.23. Okay, so that's how I can quickly find my mean and my standard deviation using a calculator. I mean, I still have to put all my data points in, which can be kind of time consuming, but I don't have to do any of that subtraction and squaring and square rooting and all that kind of stuff. Okay, my calculator. Very quickly, because we're here, let's take a look again at what these things mean. So we found the of the data that we had for the 227 gram bags, the mean was 227.15. In the 454 gram bags, the large bags, the mean was actually 454.4. Okay, so both of these are a little bit, the average mass is a little bit above the advertised mass, but it's hard to kind of compare, you know, what's going on with the small bag and with the large bag because the numbers, they're different, right? So if we use the standard deviation to tell us which one is more consistent, a standard deviation for the large bags is 4.5. Standard deviation for the small bags is 5.23. That means that the large bags are more consistently close to the average. Okay. The small bags are less consistently close to the average mass. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And this standard deviation allows us to kind of compare apples to oranges and things that are different. How do they still compare to each other, right? So I hope that makes sense. And then there's a whole bunch of questions that follow that allow you to use your calculator to calculate mean and standard deviation. If you have a Sharp, I want you to pay close attention to how you clear your table. Okay, if I want to start the next question in my Casio, I'm just going to kind of restart the whole process. I'll just go mode, stats, one variable, and I get a clean table. If you're not careful in a Sharp, it keeps adding on to the data that you had already put in from previous questions. So you might just reset your calculator or reset stats mode. Okay, and there's notes on how to do that. All right, good luck, guys.